Welcome back to Tila Fashion. It's been a minute, but I'm back with another tutorial video, and I'm going to be taking you through how I made these pants trousers. This is the easiest way to make pants trousers, trust me. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. Am I the only one that finds it hard to differentiate between the front and the back of fabrics like crepe? Anyway, when I am finally able to differentiate it, I usually just go over the back with chalk, so I never have to deal with that problem throughout the making of the dress or the outfit. I'm working with 2 yards of crepe for about a size 8, and I have placed it front side facing each other so I could cut 2 parts of the pattern at once. So I'm making the front pieces right now. And I'm starting off by marking the bottom seam allowance, and I'm marking it to be 1.5 inches. And I like the bottom of the trousers to be at that raw end over there. So I'm just going to take the rest of the measurements from that end. After that, I'm going to take the full length from the line that I just marked. I'm taking the full length minus 1 inch because the 1 inch is going to go into the band later on. So the full length here is 40, but I'm taking 39 inches. And that is going to form the waistline. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark out the hip line. So I'm measuring from the waistline down minus the 1 inch that we took out for the band. And the waist to hip is usually 8 inches, but most times you have to take measurements from your client or yourself. After taking the hip line, I'm going to go back to the waistline and I'm taking out 1.5 inch from the waistline, and then I'm going to connect that to the hip line. This is done usually for female trousers because of the difference between the hip and the waist. So you're trying to give more shape to the trousers. Next, I'm going to go ahead to divide the waist circumference measurements by 4. Whatever I get, I'm going to add 1 inch to that for the waist dart, and I'm going to add a seam allowance of half an inch. So in total for the waist, I'm adding 1.5 inches on the front piece, including the dart and the seam allowance. I marked the dart to be 4 inches away from the center front, and it is 3.5 inches long. Something else to do to make the trousers fit better is to go down at the center front from the waistline by half an inch and connect that to the sides with a slant line, and that is going to form the new waistline on the front piece. Now I'm going to mark out the crouch depth. You could either take measurements for it or divide the hip measurements by 4 to get the crouch depth. The crouch depth here is 10 inches, and I'm going to take it from the new waistline. And I'm also going to take out 1 inch that would go into the dart later on. So I'm marking 9 inches from the new waistline. I took the hip circumference measurement and divided it by 4, added half an inch for seam allowance. I placed it on the hip line and marked it out and connected it to the waistline. Next, I'm taking the lap circumference measurements and I'm going to divide it by 2 this time around and add half an inch seam allowance. When I was taking the measurements for the lap circumference, the measuring tape wasn't too tight around the laps because I wanted the trouser pants to be a bit free from the hip downward. After marking out the laps, I curved out the crouch depth. Now I'm taking the measurement of the waist to knee minus the 1 inch for the band. Whatever you have at the lap, for me I have 13 inches. You're going to minus 1 inch for the knee. So I'm marking out 12 inches at the knee and connecting that to the crouch. And at the bottom, whatever you have at the lap, you're going to add 2 inches to that. So I have 15 inches at the bottom there, and this is how I get the shape of my trousers. I'm going to go ahead to cut this out so I can use this to cut out the back piece. I placed my fabric right side facing each other so I could cut out 2 pieces of the back, and I placed the front piece I just made over it so I could use it as reference for a few measurements. The back pattern is way different from the front pattern. A few differences is that at the waist there, you're going to extend it out by 2 inches, and you're also going to extend it up by 2 inches, and then you're going to connect it to the side with a slant line. At the crouch depth, you're going to extend that by 3 inches, and at the knee, you're going to do 2 inches, and from the knee down, it's going to be 2 inches. I also went ahead to curve out the crouch for the back piece. I'm just going ahead to continue marking out the extension for the back piece. So I did 2 inches from the bottom to the knee, and I did 3 inches at the crouch depth. Right now, I'm just marking out the darts on the back piece also, and they are on the same area where the darts on the front piece is. I'm going to go ahead to cut out the band now, and the band, I'm not going to cut it to be straight, it's going to be curved. It will make sense if it's straight because the pattern we cut out previously, the waist isn't straight. The center front goes down by 1/2 inch and the center back goes up by 2 inches. So I folded my fabric in 2 and I went down by 2 inches. Then I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 2 and add 2 inches seam allowance to whatever I have and mark it out. I made a little mistake here when marking out the measurements because I was dividing the hip measurements here instead of the waist measurements. So I put down the hip measurement here. But it doesn't matter because I corrected it later on. And then I just went ahead to connect that from the 2 inches to the full width of the band. And the band is going to be 2.5 inches wide, including the seam allowance. But without seam allowance, I'm aiming for 1.5 inches wide. I took out about 1/2 inch from the top of the band and I indicated with my pencil the top so I don't end up mixing it up when I'm attaching this to the trousers. I cut out another piece of the band which is going to be the facing so I could turn in the raw edges of the band. I went ahead to start sewing and I started with sewing in the darts for all 4 pieces. This is what the back pieces currently look like and this is what the front pieces currently look like. I'm going to take both front pieces and place them right side facing each other and just sew down the crouch line and stop right where it begins to curve. So I'm not sewing it completely through the crouch line. You actually need to iron every step after sewing so the trouser can come out nicely. So that's what I did. I went ahead to iron. Now I'm taking the back pieces and placing it on the front pieces, right side facing each other, and I'm going to sew the 2 sides together. This is what I have after joining the back to the front by the side seam. All that's left is to join the 2 back pieces by the crouch and to sew the front to the back with the inner seam. So first I'm just going to go ahead to confirm the waist and the hip measurements like so and just mark it out. I'm not going to sew this yet, I'm just marking it out. And then after this I can go ahead to sew the front to the back pieces at the inner seam of the trouser. This is what I have now and the back crouch area is still open. Then I'm going to go ahead to make the band so I could connect the band to this before closing off that crouch area. These are the band pieces, the main band piece and the facing. I'm going to sew at the top area there with about 1/2 inch. Give it multiple notches, press it and then turn it to the other side. It looks really nice and flat after ironing. Now I can go ahead to close off the other end, but I'm going to measure to make sure that I have about 2 inches or close to 1.5 because I'm aiming for 1.5 inches. Trim off the excess and then close it off. I notched it at the middle. Now I can just go ahead to attach this to the rest of the trousers. After attaching, I went ahead to iron it flat. Now I can go ahead to close off the back crouch area. And it's going to be easier to close off because I already confirmed the measurement of the waist and hip and marked it out previously. So this area is also going to contain the zip. So I'm going to do a loose stitch from the top to wherever the zip is going to stop. And I'm going to do a tight stitch from where the zip is going to stop down. After ironing the stitches, I'll go ahead to open up the loose stitch so I could attach the zip to it. The best kind of zip to use for this is an invisible zip, so that's what I'm using here. I couldn't get an exact color for this, so I just settled for a darker shade of brown, and I'll just go ahead to attach this. Next, I'm going to go ahead to fold in the bottom seam allowance so I can close it off. I can either do this by sewing or using hemming gum. I'm going to use a hemming gum in this case, and I'm also going to double the hemming gum so it can last a little bit longer. So I put the hemming gum in between and went ahead to iron it, and I have this neat finish. I also went ahead to weave the insides of the trousers, and that is basically it. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Thank you, and I'm going to see you in my next video.